Bonsoir tout le monde. Good afternoon. Bienvenue tout le monde. Welcome everyone. My name is Cécile Axilien. I am the current president of the Haitian Studies Association, and I am also a professor at University of Maryland, College Park. On behalf of the Haitian Studies Association, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. I want to extend a special merci en pile and aibobo to our moderator and panelists, and also to Julio, who has made this possible with the technology. The HSC Executive Committee has been closely following the situation in Haiti. By Tuesday, we decided, giving HSC's mission as an international scholarly organization whose main objective is to disseminate knowledge and inform policies around Haiti, that we had a duty to bring together specialists in Haitian studies to have a conversation about what is happening right now in Haiti. We call upon our colleagues, and they all immediately said yes. We thank them for that and for their unwavering commitment to Haiti. We also want to ensure that we are hearing the voices of scholars, activists, artists, and practitioners who are based in Haiti. So we will plan another webinar within the next 2 weeks or sooner, where we will hear from these colleagues who are on the ground in Haiti. Stay tuned for information on the next HSA webinar. The current situation in Haiti is beyond complex and complicated. It is multi-layered, intersectional, and interdimensional. Over the past few months, beyond our regular scholarly activities, the HSA board has consulted with many in Haiti and in the diaspora and have continued our work to ensure our own support and contributions to solving the current crisis. As Haitian studies scholars, activists, artists, practitioners, and translators, we lament the loss of human lives and the suffering that our sisters and brothers in Haiti are experiencing. They are our colleagues, friends, sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers, grandmothers, grandfathers. Haiti is a part of us, whether by birth or by choice. We deeply feel the pain that everyone in Haiti is going through right now and has been for far too long. As a colleague recently said, and I quote, wars, chaos, disruption, destruction, and loss of human lives diminish all of us. The recent federations of gangs coordination make the narrative around Haiti even more complex and layered. It is not a binary of good, evil, lawless, unlawlessness, and just, unjust. It is all of that and more. Today, as the world celebrates International Women's Day, we especially think of our sisters in Haiti who are getting raped and killed every minute. Let us take 60 seconds to remember our Haitian sisters and brothers, both those who have been killed as a result of the various insecurity, mental, physical, psychological, and emotional, and those who continue to be victims. Let's pause for 60 seconds. Haiti's narrative are complex and deeply entrenched and rooted in colonialism, colonial misunderstanding, neocolonialism, imperialism, capitalism, inequity, classicism, colorism, injustice, and greed. I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Francois Pierre-Louis, who will moderate this conversation. Dr. Francois is professor and chair of the Political Science Department at Queens College, CUNY. He is one of our most important contemporary political sciences. He is the author of the book Haitians in New York City, Transnationalism and Hometown Association. His articles have appeared in several venues, including Education and Urban Society, the Journal of Black Studies, as well as the Journal of Haitian Studies. He has coordinated the Chancellor Initiative to help rebuild higher education in Haiti. Dr. Pierre-Louis has also worked as a community organizer in Haiti and the US and served in the private cabinet of President Aristide during his first presidency in 1991 and as an advisor to Prime Minister Jacques-Edouard Alexis in 2007-2008. He is also former president of Haitian Studies Association. Thank you, Dr. Pierre-Louis. To you now.
Thank you. Well, this is a very hard transition because as scholars, researchers, as Cecile mentioned, we are also Haitians, we are friends of Haiti, and we are deeply attached and rooted with Haiti. However, one of our main activities is to do research, to write, and to explain to the general public what is actually taking place in Haiti. Again, I'd like to thank you, Cecile and Claudine, for inviting me to be the moderator of this important roundtable. And I'd like to thank also the panelists. I will read briefly their bio, and then I will ask them to say a few words before we start with the questions. We have on the screen right here, Mamira Douge Prosper. Mamira is does global international studies. She's assistant professor and specializes in research on social movements in the Caribbean and Latin America, particularly Black and Haitian social movements. We have Professor Robert Patton Jr. He is the Julia A. Cooper Professor of Government and Foreign Affairs in the Department of Politics at the University of Virginia. He also served as chair of the Department of Politics from 1997 to 2004 and associate dean of the Graduate School at the University of Virginia from 2010 to 2012. I'm just not going to read everything, but he has published numerous books and articles and done a lot of research on Haiti. And his latest book was the Haiti Trap in the Outer Periphery. And also, he also published several articles in the Journal of Haitian Studies and other scholarly journals. So the third person is Jake Johnson. Jake Johnson is a great friend of Haiti. One of these people who have really committed to the cause of Haiti for many years. Johnson is senior research associate at the Center for Economic and Policy Research in Washington, D.C., and he has been the leading writer for the Center's Haiti Relief and Reconstruction Watch website since February 2010. Just weeks after this earthquake, he started this project, and he has been able to educate and teach a lot of the friends of Haiti on what is taking place in Haiti. His work has appeared in the New York Times, The Nation, ABC News, Boston, Truthout, and The Intercept. Joe just published a new book on Haiti, and I don't want to do shameless advertising for it, but I would highly recommend that you read this book. And this is the latest on the scholarly research on Haiti, and we will put the book's title and where you can get it on the site here. The other speaker is Jimmy Chérizier from the University of British Columbia. Jimmy Chérizier is professor of global race in the Institute of Race, Gender, Sexuality, and Social Justice at the University of British Columbia, and a research associate at the Center for the Study of Race, Gender, and Class at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. She is trained as a social cultural anthropologist in the African Diaspora program at the University of Texas, Austin. Her research and teaching engages with Africa and the African diaspora across three broad areas of inquiry: the relationship of political economy to race, migration, and the ethics and politics of Western knowledge. So for the next hour and 45 minutes, we will be engaging with these stellar scholars. We have several questions that we'd like to ask them. As you know, we are all experts on these topics, so I'm going to ask the scholars if they can be as brief as possible when they answer, so that we can cover as many topics as possible. So before I start with the questions, I'd like to ask each of them to give a 2-minute introduction. And let me start with Professor Faton.
Okay, thank you so much, Francois, and thank you, Cécile, and all of the members of the Haitian Studies Association. And it's a sad day in many ways because the situation in Haiti is really catastrophic, but our task as scholars is to try to make sense of what the heck is going on in our country. I think that the probable, whether it's forced or voluntary resignation of the Prime Minister Ariel Henry will leave Haiti without a government unless the different political factions in Haiti reach an agreement for a transitional council of governance. Without such an agreement, and even with it, the gangs might well emerge as the arbiter of Haiti's immediate future. They control 80% of Port-au-Prince. They may be able to capture the airport and even the National Palace. They seem to be overtaking the police, so they are the dominant coercive force in this institutional void. While they may not be the visible face of a new government, their violent power might well give them an important seat at any negotiating table. We have also reached a point where it is probably too late in the game to see the Kenyan police multinational security mission as a realistic solution, if it ever was. So I don't see that as a great hope. And this is especially the case because the Kenyan government has made it clear that without the $200 million promised by the US, its police officers will not deploy in Haiti. Moreover, we know that many of these officers are desisting because of the violence in Haiti. And finally, the force, which was supposed to be about 1,000 officers, is now down to 400 who have been trained for the operation. So this is becoming a tragic farce. After more than 2 years of a terrible calculus and banking on a single individual, Prime Minister Ariel Henry, Washington seems to confront the current Haitian crisis without a clear strategy. In fact, the policy is in total disarray. It is dangerously late for the Biden administration to ask now for the Prime Minister's resignation, the constitution of a presidential transitional council, or a government of national unity. 2 years of unfulfilled promises by Henry's government failed to change US policy and open a window for the growing power of the gangs. Today, the window is wide open and a total collapse of whatever is left of Haiti's institutions may be imminent. By withdrawing its support for Ariel Henry, Washington is humiliating him and demonstrating once more that Kissinger was right when he declared it may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friend is fatal. In this instance, however, it seems that the US is impotent to deliver any type of immediate solution, let alone one for the medium term or the long term. In the meantime, Haiti's political factions continue to agree that they cannot agree. Time is simply running out for them and for the country itself. At this juncture, one can only hope that the transitional government, free of gangs, can somehow crystallize from the hellish conditions besieging Haiti. That may be the only rational, sane solution in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Mamira?
So thank you, HSA, for putting this event together, and a panel of folks who have Haiti on their hearts and minds, but may also come from some divergent political positionings. So I was gonna sing, but I will spare you all. And I wanted to start out by recognizing, as Cécile, our president of HSA, has done at the beginning, is centering women on today's International Women's Day, and to remind us of the history of the Women's Day and wrestle it from the liberal and imperial feminist history now that has sort of crystallized this day, you know, through the UN and washed it out of its radical beginnings, which really is about socialist women, women who are in unions, who are demanding certain if you will, compromises from capital. So I wanted to bring that up because I think it's important that we center women in our conversations today, not only because we know that the violence and the crisis has had disproportionate effects on negative impacts on women and children, but I think also, even despite the dire situation that we are exposing here and that everyone is reading, to remind folks that there has been and there is continual resistance to what's going on. And I just want to signal, for example, about 2 weeks ago, we had a panel in a different space where some folks from Solino, which is a popular neighborhood in Port-au-Prince, had come and had talked about the ways that the people there had erected barriers and people were, including women, fighting against the encroachment of these armed folks into their neighborhood. I have reports on the ground thinking about places like Paco, for those of you who know Port-au-Prince, where folks are erecting gates to essentially block and prevent their neighborhoods from being invaded. So I do want to say that that is also part of what's happening. It is not necessarily going to deliver Haiti in the ways that we would want, but I think it's important that we know that that's also happening on the ground. And one of the things that I think we will unpack here, and the questions that Dr. Pierre-Louis has posed us ahead of time to think through, is that I believe, right, I think that it is a mistake to look at the gangs as necessarily completely separate actors from the traditional political class and from who we call, right, the merchant industrial capitalists. If we look at the ways that, particularly since 2018, the gangs started really coming to the full force and coming to be known as the actor that we are now discussing here, we will see that it's directly related to popular mobilizations that were happening on the ground. If we think about the Pays Loc, right, what some have called the general strike, 6-7 juillet, though we know it had come to be co-opted, right, by some politicians later on. If we think about what we call, some of us call the Petro Challenge movement, that essentially shut down the country when folks were demanding, where is the Petro-Caribe money? We will see a direct connection to, right, the first massacre, that being taken place in La Saline in November 2018. And we begin to see the gangs taking much more room, right, as an actor on this stage, this big theater now that is Haiti. So I think we need to not forget that they are a crucial instrument in the negotiations that are taking place between the so-called folks who now are proposing themselves as those who are going to deliver Haiti out of this crisis. So I think it's important that we recenter that and we rethink in ways that Dr. Pierre also has mentioned in other talks, to think of the gangs, right, as paramilitaries. And I think that that's important as a reframing, again, because it shows the ways that gangs have been used by the state, by the political opposition, but also by the bourgeois, merchant capitalists, the industrialist capitalists in the country, to compete against each other, but also to censor the people, right? That this is really a struggle to put the Haitian people back in their place, right? To have them acquiesce to whatever comes next because they're being pummeled. And whatever comes next is going to be more of the same status quo, to keep Haiti in what Dr. Faton has called, right, the outer periphery, right? And the role that it plays and ensuring that the global capitalist system functions. This is something that we've all sort of, discussed in other spaces about the ways that Haiti has made of many people, including Gilbert Bidjou, a billionaire, right? And we've seen the history in which politicians have been instrumental in controlling the minimum wage and keeping it the lowest in the Americas. So we can't divorce our reading of today's political crisis, of the so-called gang violence, without thinking about this long history of struggle in Haiti between the people, right, the masses that we can sort of recognize in the different groups that are on the ground, that we can here, spend the time to name, but of course between them, right, and the state that has really been used as an instrument for a transnational few to be able to accumulate capital. So I think that for me, our conversation, and even how we're identifying this moment where there are self-appointed politicians who are sitting around Zoom and other tables deciding for Haiti that, in fact, whatever transition that they sign, whatever council that they elect or that they self-select, right, is not going to answer the needs of the people. Right? It's not going to answer some fundamental questions like, where is the Petro-Caribe money? It's not going to resolve the minimum wage crisis. It's not going to resolve the energy crisis. That these folks are also just creating a moment, an opportunity for them to sit at the table and to get a piece of the power. And we cannot think that they do not also have a hand in controlling the paramilitaries that are on the ground right now. So that's part of what I was hoping to offer in my initial remarks that might frame somewhat our conversations in the next hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamira. And as I mentioned before, just of the press is Jake Johnson's book, Aid State, Elite Panic and Disaster Capitalism, and the Battle to Control Haiti. It is published by Macmillan Press. So, I'm doing a shameless advertising for it. And I'd like everyone to go out there and get that book. And it's quite right to the point as we are, addressing those issues today, this afternoon. So, Jake?
Yeah, thanks, Francois, and thank you all and to HSA for inviting me into this space. I am honored and humbled to be sharing this space with all of you and have learned so much from these other panelists over the years. I'm a bit at a loss of even what I should be talking about here right now. But I will keep this really brief and move on to the Q&A because I'm excited to get there. But I think it is easy to look at the situation today and to think of Haiti as a failed state. And we're seeing that every single day on every single news network, in every single paper, and every policymaker and analyst is saying the same thing, right? And I think, it's really important to try and push back on this because there's a certain connotation behind that term, right? And I think the implication of it is that Haiti cannot govern itself, right? And I think we all know here that that is not the issue at hand, right? And that failed state is really a meaningless term, but a term with some serious implications behind it. But that what has led to the situation on the ground in Haiti today is not just the results or the actions of Haitians or people in Haiti, right? But is directly related to the actions of foreign powers and specifically my government here in the United States, right? So there are deep historical roots to all of this, obviously, and I think the folks on this call and presumably this panel are well aware of the history here. But we don't have to go very far back to see the implications and the results of foreign intervention in Haiti. As Francois mentioned, my own work in regard to Haiti started after the 2010 earthquake, and trying to follow the money, $10 billion after that earthquake, and where was it going and what was its impact. And it's easy to look at that and say, okay, Haiti needs outside assistance. Haiti doesn't have the resources. Haiti doesn't have the capacity. But the result of that $10 billion, the result of the money that actually made it on the ground, is directly related to the institutional collapse and the lack of state authority that we're seeing today, right? This money undermined local organizations, local grassroots groups. It has divided the country and directly related to what we're seeing today. And then not long after that, we saw the 2010, 2011 electoral process forced on Haiti by the international community who were looking for a new partner to manage that money. And they cared enough about it to directly intervene and overturn those election results, right? And usher Michel Martelly and his PHTK party into the presidency. And it has been the support for those successive governments, right, that have existed and had legitimacy due to the intervention of the foreign powers, and namely the United States, right, that again has contributed so much to what we're seeing today on the ground. And so, I just really wanted to focus there. And I think, as a last point, right, I mean, it's also very clearly on display, right, over the last couple of years with US support for the de facto Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. And that stems from his ascension to power in the aftermath of the 2021 assassination of Jovenel Moïse, a process that was, again, he was urged to form a government by the international community, by the UN and the United States, and lo and behold, he did, right? And for the last 30 months, his legitimacy has not come from Haiti, right? It has come from those outside powers. And that has given a tremendous role to those same outside powers in shaping Haiti's future, right? And that is at the heart of so much of what we're seeing right now. So I will quiet down and sit back and listen to the rest of you for a little while, but looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
Jemima?
Bonsoir tout le monde. I'd like to thank Cecile and HSA for inviting me to be part of this conversation. My brief remarks today are meant to center what I think is the most significant, what is of most significance to the situation in Haiti. And that is Haiti is currently under foreign occupation and has been for the past 20 years. Haiti lost its nominal sovereignty late February 2004 through the US, France, Canada-led coup d'etat and an occupation that has been managed by the machinery of the United Nations. The nature of the legitimization of the coup by the UN through the deployment of so-called peacekeeping troops and via long-term occupation allows it both to not be perceived as a coup and for the foreign occupation to not be understood as occupation. Two important points need to be made about the deployment of the UN peacekeeping mission to Haiti that established the occupation. First, it was the permanent members of the UNSC, UN Security Council, France and US, which played the key role in backing and aiding the removal of the Haiti sitting president, and then being members of the UN Security Council pushing for a UN occupation. Second, the UN deployment and occupation based on a coup d'etat sponsored by these two member states of the UNSC, permanent seats, were fraudulent. To add insult to injury, most of the UN resolutions referred to securing Haiti's sovereignty, as if sovereignty could exist with foreign political control and military occupation. This is especially since the UN's core group continues to be the arbiter of colonial. And I'm very clear about this is not a neo-colonial project, it's a colonial project, a direct rule of Haiti. We must also point to the coordinated work among many institutions, as has been revealed by the WikiLeaks papers in particular, where the coordinated institutions of the work of the US State Department, the US intelligence apparatus, and its mammoth aid, USAID, its aid network. For example, it is no secret that the CIA Front, National Endowment for Democracy, funded several Haitian civil society groups in the early 2000s. US, France, and Canada's actions in Haiti over the last 20 years demonstrate the country's critical place as a laboratory of US and Western imperialism, and US imperialist actions in Haiti have and continue to fundamentally shape internal dynamics, the terrain of class and color conflict, of politics and culture, of accommodation and resistance. The occupation of Haiti that began in 2004 and that continues should be considered the most successful exercise of neo-imperial sabotage of a country. The US, France, and Canada were able to remove a democratically elected and popular president, bypass the country's constitution, and over the past 20 years, install prime ministers and presidents while overseeing the complete dismantling of the Haitian state. This was all done with the support, however unwittingly, of the world. Perhaps this is the most shocking aspect of the coup. Today, most people in the world do not understand that Haiti is currently under occupation. So today, as Haitian people continue to suffer under the violence enabled and sustained by foreign occupation, we are told that the interests of the US and the international community in Haiti are humanitarian, that they want to protect the Haitian people from so-called criminal gangs. Yet, US weapons continue to flood Haiti, and US has consistently rejected calls to effectively enforce a UN Security Council resolution for an arms embargo against the Haitian and US elite who import guns into the country. So when we speak of gangs, we must recognize that the most powerful gangs in the country are subsidiaries of the US itself. The United Nations Integrated Office, which is BINU, and the Core Group, the two colonial entities that have effectively ruled the country since the coup d'etat in 2004. It is this gang, the Core Group, and its installed Prime Minister, Henry, who, along with the UN office in Haiti, is insisting on this violent solution of an occupation of foreign invasion to the crisis in Haiti, a crisis they themselves helped to create. The only enduring solution to the current crisis in Haiti is one of decolonization, to recognize that Haiti is under foreign occupation and to work towards ending that occupation. Thank you.
Well, you have put me in a very embarrassing situation here. You more or less kind of answer all my questions I had here in some ways or another, but I have to keep on going. So my question to all of you is that Ariel Henry was handpicked by the United States to lead Haiti to a democratic transition. So why did he fail to do so? Robert Fato?
Well, I think many of the answers to that question were elaborated in the previous discussions. I think that in the case of Ariel Henry, that was a choice that was a bit bizarre, because initially, if you recall, the international community had supported the then incumbent Prime Minister Claude Joseph. And a few days afterwards, and this is the most outrageous things, the UN representative in Haiti sent a tweet saying that Ariel Henry would become the new prime minister and that Claude Joseph should resign. And this is exactly what has happened. So that proves in many fundamental ways the influence of the United States and of the core countries. On the other hand, I think one has to look at the mutually opportunistic convergence of interests between some sectors of the Haitian political class, the business class, and the international community. Those things that happen in Haiti are not just of the making of the international community. You need collaborators, you need elites in Haiti that are prepared to play that game. It's a very dangerous game for them. As we can see now for Ariel Henry, he's being dismissed in a humiliating fashion. But that does not necessarily going to change, the nature of that elite. One of the other things that is quite important in terms of the continued crisis in Haiti is the neoliberal project that has been imposed on the country since the 1980s. It probably started under Jean-Claude Duvalier, and that has contributed to the complete destruction of the state, of national productive capacities. We all know what has happened in terms of agricultural production as a result of the decisions of the IMF and the World Bank and the USAID. You remove the tariff, then everything collapses in Haiti, you import everything, and that obviously leads to a class of people in Haiti who are going to benefit from those imports and selling those imports. So there is that convergence of interest between the imperial powers, if you wish, and some sectors, some key sectors in Haitian politics and Haitian business class. The other thing that I want to suggest is that I do agree that the gangs were initially nurtured, financed by multiple business sources, political groups in Haiti. I think the situation has changed, however, now, because I believe that the gangs have acquired a certain autonomy, whereas previously their masters could more or less control them. Now I think they are controlling the situation. And I think this is the key difference that we have. Gangs that have become powers unto themselves. It's not that they are completely autonomous, but they have the capacity to block anything that would happen in Haiti in the immediate future. And finally, I would suggest that in the absolutely immediate future, we need to find a solution, however unpalatable that solution may be, and we hope that the gangs would not be included. But we are not going to solve in the immediate future the multiple social economic problems that Haiti face. We need some sort of a government that can reestablish some semblance of order and create a situation where people can finally organize and hopefully offer a real alternative. But that is extremely complicated because we are ultimately so close, as the Mexicans like to say, so close to the United States and so far from God.
Thank you. Now, Mamira, going on the issues of the gangs. You see, the gangs have vowed to take power in Haiti. Do you think they will succeed? And what does a government controlled by gangs would look like?
So I saw this question, and I think this is an extremely difficult question to answer, right? This is what Dr. Faton was saying at the beginning, magical realism. I do think it appears that the gangs have now become an autonomous actor, and time will tell if that's true. But I do think that if we take seriously that the PHTK, for example, the Parti Haïtien Tête Calée, was not one formed out of some sort of ideological cohesion, but folks who had interests that align at the time, that there is an infighting within the PHTK for power. As we know, Jovenel Moïse, when we're looking at the details of his assassination, there are many folks, including who were his buddies, right, who were involved in his assassination, and that Ariel Henry, as a third version of PHTK, is not necessarily aligned with these other boys. So I think that there is a struggle between the PHTK and that is taking place on the ground that we're seeing, and where the gangs and how they've federated, where they fall. I don't know that I'm yet seeing complete evidence that they are not still hired hands. And it's not to take away agency from them. It's not to say that they could not emerge with some kind of separate consciousness into a separate actor. I do think that and this is what I said at the beginning, that to separate them out from those who have given them the guns and continue to fuel them with ammunition is to sort of miss the relationship that we need to take very seriously between them, as I said, as an armed arm, right? As paramilitaries functioning on behalf of those who are really vying for power, and who will come to inherit power. Now, that Haiti had a government, I think that those of us who were spending time in Haiti under Ariel Henry will say that there was no government, right? There was no parliament, there was no judiciary system actually functioning, and even the different functions of the state were barely being done, right? So whether it was to pick up trash, whether it was the delivery of, the little bit of water that folks get to dîner pas, there was not a functioning government under Ariel Henry, who, by the way, was not chosen, and I think this has been said already, by anyone in Haiti other than international hands. And I think that's clear, that no matter where we stand on the spectrum of ideology and what political parties that we support, it's clear that Ariel Henry definitely did not have a people's mandate. So I don't know that he also was picked to actually transition Haiti into any kind of democratic rule. I think Ariel Henry was picked to, for example, push through the constitutional changes that will allow foreigners to have even more control over Haitian economy and Haitian politics, right? That will inflate the executive with even more power. That this is really what he's been put in power to do, right? Is to change some of the legal structures of Haiti that will allow further economic plundering of the space. And even the elections that we, had hoped that he was going to organize were going to be elections that we know would be rigged and would just be a way to usher in a new phase that would continue the status quo and that would keep Haiti remaining, right, a cog in the chain for the capitalist machine. So what does, whether we want to say that Guy Philippe, Moïse Jean-Charles Cambo, or some sort of OPL, Famille Lavalas, Accord Montana folks, Cabrassi Ensemble, right? That regardless of whatever these folks are concocting behind the scenes, right? That they are not necessarily, right, there to function to bring Haiti out of what it actually is, the crisis that impacts people, or the neoliberal plan that continues to see Haitians as, the lowest workers in the region. And so I also think that
Can I
yeah.
interrupt you here 1 second?
Yes.
Yeah. I want to go to Jake because you
But
mentioned.
can I finish? I wanted to say that for
yeah.
us to think of the gangs who have the guns right now, who are controlling Port-au-Prince or sections of it and potentially the rest of it, is to also think that the PHTK are themselves not gangs à cravate, right? That they were not also functioning very much in the same ways of destroying the state apparatus and destroying the Haitian people. That yes, the gangster with the big gun and tête marée looks much scarier to us, but the PHTK didn't do any better, right? Whether we want to separate them out as two different actors, the PHTK were gangsters and they behaved as such. So that I'll end there.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going back to Jake because Jake usually gets the tweet at the last minute to give us answers from the State Department's, tweets. So Jake, what role is Guy Philippe playing in Haiti? And do you think he has the backing of the Haitian elite and the international community in this crisis?
Yeah, I think this is a big question, obviously. I mean, just to give some background, I mean, I think part of what has fed all of this, right, was, I mean, Guy served 6+ years in a US prison for, money laundering related to drug trafficking charges. He pled guilty to that. He was released and deported back to Haiti just a few months ago, right? Not that long ago. And I think the fact that he is now playing such a role and taking such a public role in this, it's kind of unfathomable that this would happen without some awareness of the years, that they knew exactly what it would end up doing once he was on the ground, right? And yet, what actual role he's playing, I think, is unclear, right? Is he actually stoking this violence? Is he working hand in hand with these armed groups? Or is he trying to seize the moment and seize the power on his own, right? We have to see how this plays out. I mean, what I'll say is this, there are political negotiations happening right now. I think I share the analysis we've heard already that, in and of itself, a political negotiation, new transitional council is not a solution, right? It's not in and of itself, right? But this is one of the big, stumbling blocks in those negotiations right now is, does Guy Philippe get a seat at that table, right? And it's kind of astounding that 6 months out of getting out of federal prison on drug trafficking charges, there's now even a debate in a US brokered political negotiation that Guy Philippe might have a seat at that table, right? What actual power he has, I think, we're going to see in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you. Jemima, it seems like the way the news comes out, as if Haitians themselves don't have any agencies in this crisis. So what do you think what is the role of the civil society and the political parties in this crisis, and whether they can, do you think they can offer meaningful leadership?
Yeah, well, my position is very interesting in the sense that you've heard from my opening comments. I think civil society can try all they want, and they'll be denied a say, outside of the context of what the U.S. and the so-called international community want. So look at the Accord Montana, which actually began meeting, the people in that group, not that I necessarily endorse everything, but they started meeting in, early 2021, before the assassination of Moise. And they were completely sidelined towards the end, even as they tried to accommodate the needs of the U.S. meeting. Sometimes people, they lost members because it seemed like they were begging for people to listen to them, the so-called international community. So my point is, it's really interesting to me to think about how we blame, on the one hand, we blame Haitians, right? This idea of these gangs, Black men with guns, that's what makes the headline news. But these, people in suits that come in and change election results the way that the Obama administration did in 2010, when they put Martelly and the PHTK in power. When the OAS went along with it, they changed election results. They change, they do all these things, and we don't call them. I think they're the real gangsters. I mean, because and so we don't take into account. With imperialism, there's so much room to wiggle that you have. And if you don't play along, the WikiLeaks papers tell us that Hillary Clinton threatened Preval with a plane to fly him out if he did not agree to changing the election results, right? This is when Hillary Clinton went to Haiti to push this. And so for me, on the one hand, you can say we have agency. The agency has been on the streets. And the people protesting, especially around the Nupap Domi and then the Petro-Caribe protests. But what happened? What happened was the repression of those protests by the same government installed by the so-called government installed by the US. And what did Henry do? The first thing he did, remember, was the removal of fuel subsidies, because he's doing what the US needs him to do. We forget these things. So we can say we have agency all we want, but if you have a boot under your neck, how can you move? How much can you move, right? And to me, the so-called international community is the boot on Haiti's neck. And you're sitting here talking about negotiations. These are secret negotiations happening at a table. Whose table is it? It's not Haiti's table. We didn't build the table. We don't make that decision. So for me, if we don't deal with the fact that whatever negotiations have to happen under the auspices of the US, or its minions like the CARICOM groups, then we cannot actually move forward. We're just going to continue pushing down the same problem over and over again until things get so untenable that they blow up again, like they keep blowing up. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Bob, Robert, Professor Fatton, let me go back to you again.
Mm-hmm.
You've written a lot about the Haitian habitus.
Mm-hmm.
So where does that apply today?
Well, I think that the situation is a situation where someone might emerge as a new messiah. The result will be the same because the structures are not changing. So, you have an exceptional situation, and you have people like Guy Phillip, who wants to be the new messiah. That's very clear. And he has no project. He is connected to the gangs, is connected to the United States, whether we like it or not. I mean, this is really a bizarre situation when you think about it. Someone who exits jail, goes to Haiti, and then he becomes a candidate, a viable candidate in the mess that we have. This is not by accident. I mean, one may remember Michel Martelly when he was singing Bandit Legal and Bandit, I forget what is the other word. And that's exactly what the situation is. You have Bandit Legal, who are the guys, as we put it, in suits, the people who are doing the bidding of the core countries. And then you have the situation of the gangs, which are vilified. And they are very violent. No one should, in my view, should romanticize the gangs. But the gangs are also a phenomenon of the extreme poverty that exists in the areas where they are nurtured. And when you have no future, when you have no education provided to you, when you are stuck in the slums, it is very difficult to really understand how we can condemn them at one level. This is almost a logical, ugly result of the situation in Haiti, that there is no hope. When you look at those young guys, you know, it's really a drama because nothing has been provided to the people in the slums. They are stuck there, and their life is a life of misery. And this is the system. The system has created that. So we have been nurturing monsters. And when they become monsters, we say, oh, this is horrible. The system creates that. It nurtures that kind of ugliness. Now, where I could differ to some extent from Jemina is that we are not going to be able to be free from the United States. I don't see how we can do it. You know, if it were possible, this is why I said so close to the United States and so far from God, because we have that reality that it's not something that is easy to do. And even if you do it, the consequences that you might suffer in terms of warfare, in terms of embargoes, in terms of sanctions are significant. So I'm just suggesting that given the catastrophe that we are in now, we need to find a way out to start to think about a project that could start changing the structures of Haiti. But given the situation now, if we don't have that mild opening, I don't see how we change the whole thing.
So I'm going back to Mamira. And Mamira, I'd like to ask, Bob said, you know, we are locked in. Says it's going to be that way. That's it. So therefore, we have no agency in this process. Mamira, tell me, what role can the diaspora play?
Sorry, Francois, I didn't say that we are locked in. I said that you can create a space, but the idea that you're going to remove the United States from the equation, I think this is not happening.
Okay, so Bob and Mamira, I'll start with Mamira. Do you think the diaspora can be the venue to create that space? The Haitian American diaspora.
Well, so thank you for these questions. They're very provocative, and I see folks on the chat are fired up, and I know people are writing to me on the side too because they're fired up. I will say, yes, I agree with Bob, with Dr. Faton, right? That the ways that popular neighborhoods, what we're calling slums, what people who live there call the ghettos, right, have been abandoned, certainly created the opportunity for folks to be co-opted and to be turned as agents of chaos, right, against even their brothers and sisters and neighbors, etc. However, there are a whole lot of other organized groups in these same spaces who made very different choices, because they were doing the work of politically educating themselves, right? They were connecting with organizations in other neighborhoods and throughout the country, and they made different decisions. They are the folks, for example, in a neighborhood like Solino, who were erecting the barricades to fight against the armed groups, right? What I'm calling the paramilitaries, what we might want to call, right, terrorist groups, right? Whatever. But I want us to remember that the response of the masses isn't this monolithic, right, response that we have seen a myriad of different responses, including people organizing, including people wanting to do something else and having a very different vision for their life, right, and enacting that in everyday life. So I want to, as a social movement scholars, I would be remiss not to bring us back to the fact that on the ground, it's much more complicated than how we see it when we stand here in the diaspora. And to connect to your question, I do think the diaspora have a role. Here we are on this panel, right? Jake, you know, you're honorary today, right? Here we are on this panel, right? Having this conversation in English, trying to bring some clarity to other Haitian American folks, right? And folks in Canada are also listening, and even maybe some folks in Haiti. But I do think that the diaspora has to also understand that we hold foreign passports, and we also have to stay in our given role, right? And we have to stay in the belly of the empire and to keep the United States and Canada and France and Brazil, right, responsible for their hand in what's happening in Haiti. But the Haitian solution, I'd love to be part of it too, but I'm here in California, right? And the Haitians in Haiti have to make certain decisions about what they want, right? When here as US citizens, we would be bewildered that anybody from another country could come and decide for us how we should move politically. So we also have to recognize as Haitian diasporic people who've made a choice in some ways, and maybe some of us didn't, as myself, right? We're shipped off, right? But we live here. And by the virtue of that, we need to stay on our role in our place, right? And it doesn't mean that we don't have something to hand over to Haiti and to be in solidarity, but we need to be careful and not also drawing ourselves up as some kind of savior, right, that has much clearer solutions for Haiti and Haitians living their everyday life. We are imbricated in this capitalist system as consumers, whereas most Haitians, right, if you were to really see what their perspective is on what they want for Haiti, and you know, when my book finally comes out, that's some of the things that you guys will get to read about, the ways that Haitians have organized national conferences to say, this is our vision for what our development should look like, right? And as Dr. Pierre said, fell on the deaf ears of the politicians who are in Haiti, certainly not the plan of the imperialists who see Haiti as, right, low income, you know, low workers, right, that are supposed to just be cogs in the machine, whereas the Haitian people have a totally different vision for who they are and who they want to be, right? So I wanted to say that that's really important for us to keep remembering that even as we are, you know, pushing certain kinds of agreements because we think that Haiti needs to be moved out of this particular crisis, that we not forget, right, that the Haitian people and the various organizations in which that they militate, I'm making that a word in English, right, have already said what they want. I'm not talking about Aqua Montana, I'm talking about other grassroots efforts that have happened over the last 20 years, when people have said, this is the vision that we have for ourselves as development. And that's what the diaspora needs to support, rather than think that we are going to come with our own mission to save Haiti for it to be in the image of what we want, which is a place for us to go sunbathe, right? And use the Haitian people as like cheap labor to serve us, which is what most of the diaspora feels, right? Nous besoin d'un petit côté pour nous prendre soleil, aller en vacances, pendant nous étions aux États-Unis, n'a bien vivre. This is where we do the work. How we live here, how we consume, who we vote for in this next election, that will have an impact on how politics are run, not just in the United States, but how it impacts Haiti as well. So this is what I have to say to my diasporic folks. And I regret, because I want to be part of the Haitian solution, but I need to understand where I am today and what role I need to play. And I think we're playing it here, bringing this information and these nuanced and analytical positions to this public, this English-speaking public. Sorry, I'm getting fired up parce que moun yap écrit dans chat la yap lage ba yo, so I'm responding to the energy.
Makite yo both go serum la. Bob, do you think the diaspora has a role to play? And how do you see that role?
I totally agree with Mamira. I think we in the diaspora are very privileged people, and it's very easy to pontificate about what the heck is going in Haiti. On the other hand, as Mamira said, we have a role. We are essentially academics, intellectuals, militants, if you want to call that way. So our work, our participation in debates like that can bring something to the table. But Haiti is not going to be saved by the diaspora. Haiti has to be saved from within. And whatever we may think about our role, it's not going to be fundamental in terms of the struggles in Haiti. It's a role of solidarity. The other thing that is important, and one should remember too, is that the diaspora does do something economically with the remittances. I mean, this is more than any type of foreign assistance that we get. It is not necessarily revolutionary, but it allows people to send their kids to school, to go to a clinic, etc. And those are not insignificant things when you live in the situation of most Haitians. The next thing I want to say is that obviously I didn't want to suggest that gang is the only option of people living in the slums. The problem is that it's in fact a minority solution, but they have the guns. And when you have the guns, you silence the other groups. And this is what is so fundamental about those gangs, that they literally prevent the development of any type of real alternative at the grassroots level. When you look at the situation in Haiti now, you have about 300,000 people who have been internally displaced. This is a hellish environment. That means that the overwhelming majority of Haitians are not behind the gangs. They are not the monster, if you wish. But on the other hand, the monsters have the guns, and they compel other people to behave in different ways or to be forced out of their habitat. And this is really something that we have to confront. And this is the problem, that the immediate problem that we have, that the gangs have the guns. What do you do when you have people who have the guns and are prepared to use it? And that, I don't have a solution to that. Maybe others have, but this is, to me, at the moment, not long term. I'm talking immediate short term. What do we do?
Can I just add, I know I'm interrupting the order, but I had not made this point earlier about whether we can circumvent the United States or not. I think we should. I think Haitians should. There are other powers in the region. We can name them, right? Venezuela being one of them. There are other global alliances to be made. And that it is time, after Haiti has been under the specter of the United States for, what is it, like 110 years, for it to perhaps seek another greater power to make compromises with. I understand that might not be a popular position for those of us, who are wedded to the US empire and capitalism, but it is perhaps time. And there was a possibility that Haiti could have made certain alliances much deeper with Venezuela or even a Cuba. But we know that the United States drove a war against those spaces to break that possibility. But this is perhaps the moment for Haiti to look elsewhere, because the United States has done nothing positive for Haitians. And I think we can all agree, despite our ideological differences here.
I want to also add, I was going to say exactly that. I'm so sorry.
I will let you speak. I will.
Okay, yeah, I
We
agree.
come back to it. But Jake, I have a question about the, in some circles, Haiti is known as a narco-trafficking state. So do you think the incidents that on these past few days give credence to that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna totally disobey you, Francois, here and make one quick comment on the diaspora issue too, and what Mamira was just saying about the U.S. And I'm under no illusions about that. We have a quick fix ability to change the U.S. political system and turn U.S. foreign policy into a force for good, right? That said, I do think the diaspora can play a very important role in changing U.S. policy, or at least doing damage control on U.S. policy, right? This is a big block. It's an important block. And it can mobilize and it can leverage that political weight that it has in this country to try and influence U.S. policy. And I think increasingly groups are doing that and are organizing around that, right? And I think that's a really important thing. And it should, just wanted to sort of highlight that, because we need to try and change U.S. policy. I agree with Mamira. Haiti needs more allies and friends than the United States. But we also need to try and limit the damage that U.S. policy can do in Haiti, right? And so that takes organizing here. It takes advocacy here. It takes that work. And the diaspora can play a huge role in that. So narco-trafficking, okay. Is this current crisis, is this sort of siege, the terror campaign in Port-au-Prince, directly related to narco-trafficking? In a certain way, yes. I think, a number of these armed groups have certainly developed links with narco-trafficking organizations, networks, have been involved in that to certain degrees. But I think this is also something that has existed for a long time. The drug trade is a serious thing. Haiti is a significant transshipment point. It might not be the highest in the region, but it's certainly a factor. And it's a factor that affects everything and is rarely discussed, is rarely highlighted, and is generally swept under the rug, including by the world's leading anti-drug agencies like the DEA, that have generally, and one of the interviews I had with René Preval, and he gave this anecdote of the first time when he was prime minister in 1991. It's the first day he goes to the U.S. embassy and he meets with the political officer there, and they ask him if he knows who this individual was, and Preval says, "No, who's that?" "Oh, that's the Cali cartel or Medellin cartel representative in Haiti, and if you kill him, you're next, and they'll have somebody else replacing him the next day. So don't touch him." Okay, that's the message from the U.S. Embassy to Preval in 1991. And I think we've seen the way that drug trafficking has been weaponized by the United States to go after political enemies, and then ignored when their political allies, who everyone knows are involved in drug trafficking, are actually in power, right? So it is used for politics, and I think there's no surprise that some of the high-profile arrests we've seen over the years by the United States have taken place in Haiti. The Maduro's nephews, Fabio Lobo, the former president of Honduras' son. These people were lured into Haiti and then arrested and then swept away to the United States, because the United States doesn't need to worry about extradition agreements with Haiti. They can simply just do it and bring them to the United States because there's no resistance there, right? So to me, right, drug trafficking has been allowed to be a significant player in Haiti's political space for specific reasons and on purpose, right? And I think we need to understand those dynamics. We see these cases come out. There was a huge case in 2015, the Manzanares drug boat case, right? This was taking place at a time right before legislative elections. There was no doubt that was related to significant political actors and business elites in Haiti. In fact, they were even directly implicated in it, and it was a court thing. There were bribes paid, right? Money moved away. There was a DA whistleblower case. The DA, one officer who actually wanted to pursue it, was fired, right? Covered up by his superiors, who he alleged were meeting regularly with Shawnee St. Remy, key people in Kiko St. Remy, Martelly's brother-in-law. Who, so these connections are there. They exist. They have serious negative implications. But again, I mean, we need to try and sort of expose those different networks. And again, I think this also involves pushing the U.S. to actually live up to what it's actually claiming to be standing for.
Thank you, Jay. I want to stay on the U.S. still and going to Jemima. Jemima, it looks like it was a tweet that installed Ariel in power, as Bob mentioned. And at the same time, despite all the calls to Brian Nichols and all the authorities at the State Department to let them know that Ariel is ineffective, he cannot stay in power. How do you explain the fact that the U.S. insisted on keeping their friend Ariel Henry in power?
Well, I think it's what I think many of us have said here is the U.S. wants to control the situation in Haiti, and especially wants to control the political situation. I think, the days of, things where you have the elected president that you don't want win, and then you have to go change that, changed after actually with the Martelly installation in 2011. And I think ever since then, which the U.S. has been trying to maintain control. And I think they've done that. I mean, we have the entire dismantling of the Haitian state once from 2004. And then with Martelly, what do you have? The rest of the state dismantled, all the 7,000 elected positions completely gone, 0 elected officials. That's not by accident, that's by design, so that you can come in and swoop in and decide, like they're doing right now, who's going to be your president. And then, the U.S. goal is to make it seem like you're having free and fair elections, right? It's similar, right? So they claim to have elections, as long as they can control these elections, who gets to run, who gets to win, so that they can control their policy. And so they're going to support Henry because he's been around for a while. Remember, he was part of the Council of Sages in 2004. So he's been around, brought in. And so he's been, a good stooge for 20 years. And now it's no longer tenable. So they can't do it. But the U.S. wanted to make sure they controlled the process. And every other solution that the people on the ground were trying to bring up, they did not want, because it did not fit their goal. And so that's really what it is. And I do think it goes back to U.S. imperialism and U.S. needing to control Haiti, because it needs Haiti. It needs the labor. It needs the land. It needs what Haiti has as it prepares for its other foreign policy initiatives, as it prepares to confront China. We have to remember that. I mean, there are, larger geopolitical issues going on in terms of its confrontation around, Venezuela. It wants a presence there. It wants a presence, to get away, to deal with Nicaragua, deal with Cuba, and so on. So so that's key. And I actually want to reaffirm Mamiga's point about dealing with Haiti and with the U.S., because one of the key things that I think one way that Haitians, the Haitian government tried to move away from, for example, was the Petro-Caribe, accepting the Petro-Caribe deal, where Haiti was receiving cheap oil, using that money for development. This is under Hugo Chavez, when oil prices were high and Venezuela was making money, using that money for development. Haiti, the U.S. government, as WikiLeaks files show us, was so angry at Preval for signing the Petro-Caribe Fund. And as, I don't know if you know, just 2 weeks ago, the so-called Haitian government used $500 million of a loan from the IMF to pay off the Petro-Caribe funds that it didn't have to pay off for a few years. And so that's why they need these puppets, to do these things, right? To keep us away from any self-determination that we can have. And I think, we need to address that. I don't understand how the idea is that if we just put in, a negotiated settlement of people sitting at somebody else's table and have elections, that we think this problem is not going to continue. And I think we need to make sure we know what the source of this problem is. The source of the problem is the U.S. and its minions. And I think we need to really address the root, grab the problem by its roots.
Thank you. Let me go back to Bob. My question, Bob, we all keep saying that, look what the U.S. is doing to Haiti. But Haiti is only one country in the Caribbean. There are other countries that have been able to navigate, more or less, regarding U.S. policy. Do you think that if there is a division between the Democratic and the Republican Party, it could be possible there would be a different kind of approach toward Haiti compared to the scorched earth policy that we see now?
I don't think so. What I see in American foreign policy is continuity. Now, you have sometimes a guy like Trump who openly uses racist terms, racist definition, and then you have, on the other hand, someone like Biden who smiles at you but does exactly the same thing. One has to be reminded what Biden said about Haiti in the 1990s, that if Haiti were to disappear to the deep, death of the sea, no one would care. This is what he said. This is not an invention. You can see him saying that. So why in the heck would I believe that he would be much better than Trump, or Trump would be much better? We had the example of Hillary Clinton, who came to Haiti and she met with 3 of the candidates and she decided that Michel Martelly would be the president. We know all of that. So I don't think we need to have illusions about American foreign policy. And one also has to see the contradictions. Haitians have their interest too. And the political class has its own interest, which is very different from that of the vast majority of people. One can look, for instance, and it's something that many people don't like to think about, but when Aristide was restored in 1994, it was on the back of 25,000 Marines. And that in itself was hijacking whatever radicalism there might have been in the Lavalas movement. And Aristide had to accept the IMF and World Bank programs. Those are things that we need to remember. This is why escaping from the United States is a very complicated business. It's whatever we want to do is different from the powers that we are confronted with. You look at Venezuela. Venezuela has tried to exit, but it's still suffering the consequences of the United States. The same thing with Cuba. And Cuba managed to navigate because at one point there was the Soviet Union. We don't have that now. And I don't think the Chinese are going to come to save us. I don't think that Putin is going to come to save us. So we are on our own. And the issue for me is to negotiate a way where we can have the space to have decent policies for the vast majority of Haitians. That is the first step. Anything beyond that at the moment, I think is, however nice we may think about it, is extremely difficult to see in reality.
Thank you. And I'm going back to Mamia. Mamia, you mentioned earlier about the resistance in Haiti. You know, as you all mentioned on this panel here, that Ariel Henry did not get the job done because of the resistance. Sometimes it's active, sometimes it's underground. And the fact that we see whenever there was a demonstration in Haiti, the police was well organized to squash that demonstration. However, the gangs, they couldn't go after the gangs. So can you say more about the resistance in Haiti? And do you think that can play a role in undermining the U.S. policy toward Haiti, the current policy?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I hope so, that it will be able to undermine. I know that I have been in some preliminary conversations by folks who are saying that it is time, despite the current situation, for popular mobilization to start up again and to ensure that the people are not left out of these, negotiations happening on Zoom and whatever fancy hotels people are able to get to. So, I think we're pointing to this moment as, I think when we look at this moment and, we are all emotional today. I am. There's a couple of times, my voice is cracking. I hear the crackle in other people's voices, right? That we need to step back and see that it's a struggle, right? That it's not just, yes, the Haitian people are getting plummeted, but it's because there has been a larger context of struggle. And we could pick 2018 because it's sort of the most obvious one, but we can look back at and I'll just begin, I'll periodize it by starting with 2010 and look at the ways that even in disparate moments and in disparate places throughout Haiti, there was continual resistance against the plans of the PHTK, right? So whether we talk about the Île à Vache tourism project that was destroyed, or the Laguna financial haven project that was destroyed, the attempts of the people who were displaced for the CARICOM industrial park to at least be compensated for their dispossession, right? That there had been continual pushback against the PHTK regime. PHTK is Parti Haïtien Tête Calée, PHTK, right? So that this party that was essentially here to deepen, right, the recolonization of Haiti, essentially was met continually with popular protests, even to the point when we look at the elections that had to be redone, right? When they were trying to impose Jovenel Moïse, PHTK2, the people had stopped, right? All kinds of activities to say that we reject this party, we reject this plan. And we continue to see that the mobilization went from being in disparate places to really becoming and coalescing into these huge mobilizations that were coordinated and happened at the same time, right? In July 2008, and afterwards in August and September and October and November of 2018, what we call short Peto Challenge movement, because we have the social media folks who are able to give it that name. But, the people who are coming on the ground, they were coming to ask the question, where's the Peto Caribe money? But they were coming because of the same gripes that they had for a very long time about the ways that the capitalist system, right, what we call neoliberalism, how it had impacted their life, right? How the state had not done its job in actually taking care of the needs of the people. So we see that we have to see this as also a larger struggle, right? That it's not just this moment, right? But that it's been coming, right? That if we look at the way that these paramilitary gangs are functioning in the country, it is to crack back at these mobilizations that have been happening now for 14 years, right? And so I think that we need to be able to take that scale into account to see what's happening better, right? And even if we end up having to accept whatever provisional council, right, presidential council, whatever else that they're naming, that we should expect that there will continue to be resistance, there will continue to be popular mobilizations. This is just the beginning, right? that whatever it is compromise that the traditional political class and the US are able to find in the next couple of minutes or days, that we will continue to see the Haitian people organize and say no to whatever plan is in place for them, which has been called by many folks like plan à mort, neoliberalism. Son plan à mort lié, il pas gagner la pote pour Haïti, right? So the Haitians are clear about that. They may not be able to name it in these scholarly ways that we're doing right now, but they feel it, they live it, right? And so again, I want to say right now, there are folks who are erecting barriers. They are getting ready for a fight. They are not laying down and saying, Vin prom. People are fighting back. And I think we're not going to hear that in the news. We're not going to hear that in the news, that the people are fighting back. It's not everywhere. It's not my romantic revolutionary dream, right? But people are fighting back. They have been doing so for weeks, for months now, right? Against this increased, right, power that the paramilitaries now have. So I want to say that, those of us who are connected, who want to be connected, right, there are ways that we can, speaking about the role of the diaspora, directly support some of these efforts, right? Not only by bringing the information to say to people that Haitians are not just laying down and taking it, but that there are forms of resistance taking place right now that we need to be able to lift up. So
Thank you.
yeah.
There are some questions in the chat, and some of you have answered many of those questions. But one question that came up, and that is related to the last question that Professor Fatton answered, is about Biden administration keeps sending the Haitians back to Haiti under the circumstances. So how do you explain that? I know that we've given an answer to that, but this is the ultimate hypocrisy in this context, to be sending Haitian back in this situation where the gangs are ruling and we are in a chaotic situation in the country. So, Jake, in terms of U.S. foreign policy, do you think that is something that Biden is not about to change, given the current climate in the U.S. now about the immigrants coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in DC for some time, and you can't ever be surprised by hypocrisy in U.S. foreign policy. I mean, that is, in fact, maybe the only consistency in U.S. foreign policy, right? And so, yeah, I mean, of course, I expect it to continue. I mean, there was a deportation flight last week. It was canceled. The reason why it was canceled was the airport was closed, right? I mean, that's the extent to which they want to keep pushing these deportation flights. And of course, we've seen big deportation pushes like from Del Rio in September 2021, and these have continued at a smaller pace since. But that's not the only way in which U.S. migration policy has been racist and hypocritical, right? It is our border itself, our policies that have kept Haitians in Mexico for months and made them wait for these appointments, right? I mean, our asylum system is broken. We have ignored international law. And yeah, if you can see the change in the rhetoric from the administration now, I mean, it was not that long ago, right, that Biden campaigned on restoring humanity to our migration policy, right, when Trump was in office, and the rest of the Democrats were all agreeing on that. And now an election's coming up. And of course, that's going to be the first thing to be thrown under the bus. And we've seen a history of this. And I think U.S. policy towards Haitian migrants has been sort of the tip of the spear of the carceral migration, and immigration system that the U.S. has put in place. Right, the detention centers, the Croix Detention Center in Miami, which started to house Haitians, right, when Haitians were coming to the United States. These policies, the Remain in Mexico that everyone criticized under Trump, that was launched under Biden right before that 2016 election, right? Because there was this big influx of Haitians on the border that everyone started freaking out about, right? And so Haitians and their treatment by U.S. authorities has been sort of the repressive tip of the spear, right? That they've been the leading edge of these racist immigration policies that we've seen. And yeah, I think it's a huge concern now in another election season, right? What's going to happen? And if you think one of the main reasons why the United States is all of a sudden paying some attention to Haiti, and it's getting attention to me, migration is animating a lot of that, right? That is a big concern politically. And, I say this often, but I think we talk about imperialism history. These things are important, right? But what also motivates U.S. foreign policy is domestic political interests, right? These people care about that more than anything else. These policies aren't designed to help Haiti. They're designed to help themselves. And so, look for those policies to get worse before they get better. That's for sure.
Jemima, as you know, a lot of the things that are implemented by the US are done by its allies. Interestingly, Canada has been silent. The core group has been silent in this crisis right now. And it seems that CARICOM is the one that has been the leading agent to deal with the crisis right now. So how do you explain that, Jemima?
It's Jemima, but
Jemima, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay. Nancy, well, I'm not sure they're silent as much as they're not upfront with their conversations. I think I just want to quickly point to one thing that we haven't talked about much is just the deep racism in talking about Haiti and Haitian people. And just briefly to say, you would never know that a year ago, Haitian people were in the streets protesting the removal of fuel subsidies, protesting against, hunger and price inflation and so on and so forth. You'd never know because they never covered that. So they cover young men with guns and so on and so forth. There's a deep racism. And I think Jake's comment started at the beginning saying there's a deep racism. If you go back to the early 1800s, to the coverage, Western coverage of Haitian people and Haitian protests, which is why I am very clear. I don't want to use the word gangs because I do think these people are paramilitaries, and the gang discourse is a very racist discourse when it comes to pointing to Black people. So I want to say that. The other thing is, I think, if people don't know, the U.S. passed this Global Fragilities Act under Trump right before he left office, and then and I think Biden and the Biden-Harris government basically putting it in place. And the Global Fragilities Act is basically a different kind of Monroe policy for the region, where the U.S. acts behind its what we call proxies, right? It calls its partners on the side, right? So it's a way to basically it's a combination of the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and USAID to carry on U.S. policy using other countries. And so this was perfectly, so the perfect example of this was MINISTA, where U.S. occupation and so on was actually covered under multilateralism, what some scholars would call multilateral terrorism. But at this point, what you have is you have U.S. pushing all the buttons behind CARICOM to do the dirty work of bringing people together. And this is a different CARICOM than there was in 2004, I have to say, because in 2004, CARICOM was not supporting U.S. decisions regarding Haiti and refused to actually even acknowledge the installed interim government. And so what it tells us as well is a shift in the kinds of governments that we see, these neoliberal governments that we see in the Caribbean that have been put in power and that work on behalf of the U.S. I think Canada has not been silent. Canada has been training Haitians. I don't know if people know this. Canada put money to actually teach the Kenyans French, which makes no sense. I don't know if you all saw this. They, part of their thing was to put $80 million aside to teach Kenyans French, even though Creole is, our language for the most part, right? So Canada has been playing a role in the background, training people. Haitian paramilitaries have been trained in Ecuador. Mexico was training a large group for a long time. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that we don't see. And Brazil has been in the conversation. And Brazil is a member of the core group. In fact, the same week that Lula was, castigating the genocide going on in Gaza, he met with Blinken to talk about Haiti. It was Brazil that actually pushed the CELAC, the Central American and Central and Latin American countries, to support intervention. It's Lula that's also part of the conversation right now to push for this intervention. So I think they're just quiet. I think there's more critique of the core groups, so you don't hear them. But there's a BNO office in Haiti that still makes the decisions. They're the ones that present cases at the UN Security Council. So they're all still there. And those are the groups that we actually need to consider as the gangsters that we need to actually deal with.
Very much. You know, we almost running out of time, and I would like everyone to try to think about this question. You know, we've been spending an hour and a half talking, and we've raised a lot of issues. So I'd like to ask each of you, beginning with Professor Faton, as you live here tonight, is there any ray of hope you can give to the Haitian people, to people in the diaspora that are listening to you tonight? And I'd like each of you to answer that question.
Well, I think history is full of surprises, some bad and some good. If you were living, around 1790, and you would have expected that slavery would be abolished, that the French troops would have been defeated, people would have said, "You're mad." And it happened. So incredible things can happen. On the other hand, as an intellectual, you need to look, I think personally, you need to look at the obstacles. So this is why I was talking about the United States that way. You see, I have no illusions whatsoever about the US empire. We see it everywhere. I mean, when you think about it, we are not the ones who are being bombed now by US bombs. This is in Gaza. It's a worldwide phenomenon. And you have an extreme hypocrisy. The US is dropping food on Gaza, and it's giving bombs to bomb the people who are getting that food. This is an outrageous contradiction. It's really horrible. So the idea that we need to distance ourselves from the empire is very clear. The question, how do you do that so you're not slammed, so you're not completely destroyed? And finally, I would say that the history of Haiti is not simply, the recent past. There were massive struggles under Duvalier, and they led to the overthrow of Jean-Claude. And then you had other obstacles. The army came. And then when you had the election with Aristide, the army came back. And then when Aristide came back, he came on the back of the US Marines. So you have a succession of fighting, of resistance, but you have to acknowledge that this resistance has been met with violence. And this is why we need to think very carefully about the next step, so that that next step is probably better structured, so you can engineer another step in a very different direction. But at the moment, I think the immediate thing that we need to do is to find a solution where there would be some peace established in Haiti, whereby people could eat, they could vacate to their occupation without the fear of being killed in the streets. This is critical. If you don't have that space, you don't have space for real resistance. So I think you need that before we move into the pattern of mobilization, challenging the transitional government into adopting policies that are more popular, more accountable, and that can change the nature of Haitian society, which is deeply divided along class lines, racial lines. So that is the immediate task, but there is a very long-term project to really transform Haiti into something much better.
Thank you. Dr. Prosper?
What exactly is the question? I'm sorry. You're looking for some sort of closing remark?
Yeah, is there any hope based on what we've just discussed? Talk about what kind of hope we can send to the give to the to our audience and the Haitian people.
I will just repeat some of the things that I've said. I hope that folks were able to hear, based on the presentations of everyone here, some of the nuances that we were trying to bring about understanding these paramilitary gangs as, actors that are imbricated with other powers, including, right, the ways that they function to ensure the project of the imperialists, which is to push back against the Haitians who have been mobilizing, as I said, for more than a decade against neoliberalism, recolonization. So I don't know what else to offer, because we are at a very crucial crossroads where any minute now something else might happen, and a lot of our conversations, may be, or some of our analysis may come to prove to be incorrect, right? Or need more nuancing. So again, I just want to lift up that despite, people wanting to think that the Kenyans will come in and save the day, even if they have made it clear that they're mostly interested in protecting infrastructure and not the Haitian people, that there is resistance happening on the ground, that perhaps we should find ways to support right now against the encroachment of these paramilitary groups. That's really where I can land as a conclusion.
Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think I'll own the fact that it's easier to have hope, maybe from my perspective in Washington, D.C., right, than living on the ground right now. The situation is obviously really tough. But, I think a lot of the coverage right now is focusing on the fears of state collapse in Haiti, right? The fears of the state, the last vestiges of this state disappearing. But as folks on this panel, that are listening to this know, the state has not been representative of the Haitian people for a long, long time, right? And so I think there should be hope in the state's collapse in a certain respect, right? That it had to collapse, right? There had to be some transition from the state that existed before and that didn't provide for the population, that didn't represent the population, and what can be built in the future, right? And I think what this dynamic that we're seeing right now is, ultimately is that struggle, right? There are people who have a lot of interests in maintaining the status quo and maintaining that old state, maintaining that old system of extraction, right? And they are not going to let that system die without a fight. And you're seeing that fight happen right now, right? And that's not to justify it, that's just to own it and to understand what's happening. But that also does create space. It creates a window of opportunity, at least, to try and build something different. And what Mamir is talking about in the organizing that's happening on the ground, that's what they're fighting for, right? Is to build a new state, to build something different in Haiti. That's happening. They're going to try to keep doing that. And, certainly for me as an outsider here in Washington, it's looking for ways that we can create that space by changing U.S. policy and by supporting their efforts and standing in solidarity with that organizing that's happening.
Thank you. Dr. Pierre?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo a lot of the things that are said here. Someone, Dr. Ulysses, said in the chat that as long as people are alive, there's hope. Haiti's 226 years old. There's hope. Haiti's been struggling. In fact, if Haitian people had not been struggling and pushing back against empire, against control, they would not be, the US would not spend so much time and money and energy keeping the people down. So we have to remember that. We have to understand there's a reason why the fourth largest US embassy is in Haiti, right? We have to know the significance of that place. And we have to know how it is, even now, from when the U.S. wanted to take what's that the top part of Haiti,
Agonav.
Ile de la Tortue. They've been wanting that since 1800. They haven't had it. So that tells you that the resistance has been ongoing. And we might not see it. The best thing for me, working with groups on the ground, has been people putting out statements about the situation that we don't get to see in the media. Right? There are all these statements by these local groups on the ground going against US imperialism, going against intervention, but we don't see any of that. So that's my hope. My hope is this young generation very well aware of what's going on. They don't trust any of these people sitting at this table right now, at the foreigners' table negotiating. And that to me is hope. And I think the other thing for me is the US empire is faltering. And this is where we have to take the opportunity. As the US empire is faltering, it's got too many, bowls on the fire. I don't know what the expression is, but it's so spread thin that this might be the opportunity, I think, for us to make a stand against US empire. And I think we have a role to play in bringing down US empire, because the world will be free when we get rid of US empire.
Thank you. And as someone myself who works in Haiti, the last time I was in Haiti was in January. And I work with community groups in Haiti. there is a lot of hope because people struggle, they are in poverty, they know their conditions, they know who put them in those conditions, and they have a lot of pride and resilience in the sense that they're not giving up. And I think beginning with the Petro-Caribbean movement, that's probably that gave credence to what we are doing today. It's a continuation of what started, and we have to give credit to all these people, to the workers also organizing in the factories, to the farmers, to all these groups that are unknown and they don't mention. So I agree that we should think of hope and not totally the misery, even though we know we are in a difficult situation right now. But we should always be optimistic in the sense that, you know, as I say, the people will not perish as such, but they will find ways to struggle out of this whole misery. And the good thing is that they have great intellectuals like you who care about them, who talk about them, who give them a presence in the international arena and also in Haiti. And I know all of you have dedicated your lives to making a better Haiti in the way that you can do it at your best and the skills that you have. So with that note, I wanted to thank all of you, and I wanted to pass on to Cecile for the final words.
Yeah, and I'm going to pass it to Dr. Claudine Michel, who's our executive director, but I just want to say again a big aibobo, merci en pile to Jimmy Mapierre, Mamira Douge Prosper, François Pierre-Louis, Robert Faton, and Jake Johnston. And these are all scholars. You can Google their name, and they have written amazing. I know Dr. Faton has been on NPR. Every time I turn on NPR, he seems to be there talking. So if you want to know more, and also on our website, HSA, at times we have resources, and I encourage you to support the Haitian Studies Association. And while I welcome money and the US imperialism currency, because that's the reality, but we also welcome people to join us to be part of committees. Our next conference will be in Brooklyn in October 2024. We can only have this type of events with resources, both in terms of monetary resources, but also people resources. A lot of people have been asking about the chat, what's next? We will be working on planning another event in another 2 weeks or so. We'll have colleagues, activists in Haiti. We have translator when we have these events. We need resources, we need funding. At some point, there were over 350 people on the webinar and our Zoom channel. But again, in order to do this, as we say in Creole, un pile men chay palou. We need all the hands. So I will let Dr. Claudine Michel say the last words. And thank you again to everyone. Dr. Michel.
Merci, Dr. Axilien. Merci nous toutes qui étaient sous panel là. This was very emotional, but also real. We appreciate all your thoughts. And I think Cecile has said it all, because I wanted to tell you about our next conference, with the theme being Tout Moun Se Moun. And yes, we're going to start tackling the issue of gender and sexuality, among other rights that have been violated in Haiti. But let me just say, okay, Haiti was the first Black independent nation of the Western Hemisphere. We were the original Black Radical Project. But Haiti has never really lived those very ideals of democracy. We have failed as a nation state in terms of leaving those revolutionary ideas beyond the mere ideals of revolution. the social contract was not changed. The inequities, the injustices, the violation, the human rights abuses have been part of our history. Our second issue has really been that we have been, we've attempted throughout our history to function as a sovereign nation state resisting imperialist powers. And basically the people are rising. The chicken have come home to roost, and it's time for a new social contract. It's time to get it right this time. And our panelists have exposed the role of the US and other imperialist nation in playing with our election and playing with the system. Let us listen to the Haitians. And as Mamira said, we are not the saviors, okay? So may each one of us do play their role in the sphere that we can have influences. What is it that we as the intellectual, as the Haitian diaspora, the faculty members can do in terms of trying to attempt to not allow the US and those other powers to actually replicate what they've done with our elections? And in terms of the paramilitary groups, the gangs, as they are called, it's really the people rising, okay? This suffering, these inequities, these injustices, both at the national level and international level, cannot continue. And it is time for, peace. It is time for reconciliation. It's time to have everybody at the table. And like Patrick Bellegarde-Smith said, there will never be real democracy in Haiti until the people and their culture are respected. So it is time to have everybody at the table. It is time to consider tout moun se moun. And I will just end those couple thoughts with after the earthquake, I wrote a poem about Phillip, a little girl who was living in Tent City near Pétionville. And at the time, those girls were being violated and raped, and they gave them whistles. And I remember that the last line of that poem is like, when would little Phillip be able to throw away a whistle and dream of a new Haiti? So this is what I'm asking us here, to dream of this new Haiti, and what can we do to really make sure that we get it right this time. It should not be an easy solution with the US again and others coming in and installing someone. We have no choice. There's no easy solution. So we have to have a transitory government, some kind of council. But let's really try to see how we can do it differently this time, and really change that social contract, both in Haiti and vis-a-vis the international community. So we thank you all. And like Cecile said, we need your resources, both your presence and funds, if you can contribute to the organization. And today we wanted this conversation to be with, really our diaspora. And the title was, What Do We Know? So it's an informational meeting. And within a week or 10 days, we'll be organizing a second panel with ample time with our colleagues from Haiti, and we will have translation and the proper structure to be even more inclusive. So we thank all of you for your love of Haiti, continued commitment to our country, and the fight, the struggle continues, and let's really dream with little fella of this new Haiti.